I was feeling, I am, I was and am feeling resistance to being on this live stream today. I also feel joy, um, but the resistance is fear. And it, one has to do with the exploration of this topic that we'll explore today, which is largely about self-authority and the ways that we, or I, give it away to others. And there's also a piece that's connected to this that's about letting myself be seen and sharing from this place. When I connect to the concept of self-authority, if you were to really know me, you would know that this is something I'm really working on in myself. And when I say working on in myself, it means this is a pattern I've noticed in myself that I am in a deconstruction process with, where I have been noticing so many dimensions of my life where I am giving away my authority to others. And it has been scary, a scary realization. It has been scary to realize, oh my God, how often do I give my power away in these different situations and create this idea or the story that I'm not in that I'm not powerful or I'm not capable of getting my needs met, and and the impact and the consequences that that has on me, my life, my relationships, the spaces that the communities that I live in, the world in which I live in. This has a huge impact. It's hugely consequential. And so today I'm going to show up with you all in this sort of half-baked half-baked plays. Like Axios is deconstructing himself, and he's not he's not fully in his power all the time, and he wants to be. And I want to be with you in the ways that maybe you are also not in your power. You are not claiming your authority, and I want to invite this space to be a place where we can explore, yeah, what is going on here, and how can we take more responsibility for the authority that we own. That is our birthright. That is just in merely existing. That there is an authority that lives and breathes through me, and I have in this body this beautiful opportunity to exercise that, to express that, to embody that, and to make an impact on my world in a way that is hopefully, at least in what I want, an empowering experience that invites others to stand in their authority as well. So I want to start with a sharing a video about a video I was actually watching yesterday with my community. It's called the still face experiment. You may have heard of it before. It's a very interesting experiment that was done many years ago. Basically, there's a mother and a child. The mother is engaging with the child at first in a very sort of emotionally expressive way. She's like, "Hi, hi," she's like, "Hey, baby," the thing you do with babies. And then she'll like turn away and shift into a totally neutral, unexpressive mode. And you'll see how the baby responds to this new gesture. So I'm going to start here. I will open up the video here. And let me just pull this up here on the old screen here. So here we go. I'm going to share two experiments. This is same experiment, two different versions. Here we go.
In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby who's about a year of age.
I'm like a girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this. And then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, come on, why aren't we doing this? Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it, they actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Okay. I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, what a big girl.
So that's version one, and I'm just going to quickly share this video as well. And this is basically, I think it's a really great example of a real world example of the still face experiment playing out in ways that you might not consider. But basically, this woman is texting on her phone, and look what happens. Actually, I'm going to back up a little bit more, but so you kind of get the idea here. She was still face on her phone. The baby's freaking out. And then it takes the baby a while to come back to a place of regulation. So come back here, stop that share. Okay. Whoa, all right. So I notice in me just like I feel distressed seeing that baby in distress. I'm just like, oh my God. Ugh, it feels very uncomfortable in me to watch that happen. And this morning I was just reflecting on what is the connection between, this still face experiment where this child is really depending on their mother's attunement in order to feel safe, in order to feel secure in their existence. How is that connected to, our sense of authority and how we go about our day, how we either own our authority or give it away to others? And I immediately connected to how often I go about my day, and when I'm walking, when I'm sort of introducing myself to another human, or like maybe just passing another human, there is this really sort of primal response in me to smile or to make some sort of emotional gesture that sort of signals to them, and this is my experience, like signals to them that like I'm sort of okay with them or acknowledge their presence. Um, and there's a way, and I've really like noticed this in myself numerous times. Like it's almost difficult to just keep a still face on. I've noticed it's actually very challenging to do that. And behind that is there's like this story that's bad, that there's something that's really wrong about keeping a still face when engaging with others, especially if I'm being introduced to someone for the first time. And just like how often do you when you're being introduced to someone for the first time, how often you're like, hey, nice to meet you, so nice. Hi, like show some sort of emotional gesture. Can you think of the last time when that you were introduced to someone, you were just like, hi, I'm I'm Oxios. And some of you might be better than that than me, or like maybe that's just like how it goes for you. But for me, it's not. I've been really curious about what is going on with that. And for me, it really comes back to this experiment that there's a way in which I learned that I need to signal that they're okay, that they're okay to me in order for me to feel okay. That I need to show this like this smile, this sort of emotional expressiveness to signal that there is something that is safe going on, it is okay for them to be here and it's okay for me to be here. And that is a very subtle but powerful way in which I'm giving away my authority to others. It's a very subtle but powerful way where I'm just like I'm shifting the sort of power to them where it's like there I need there's this like I need to validate you in order for me to feel valid with you. Or even it could even be the reverse. I'm afraid that you won't feel validated by me, and that will mean something, negative, value negative about me if this happens. Whoa, yeah. So as I speak to that, it's just like I can feel just like ugh, just like this is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to be in this because I can feel just like the crunchiness of that. Like there's a way in which I don't feel in my power in this way. And I live in this culture where that sort of way of being is constantly reinforced, where there is and I've actually had this experience as well. Have you ever just like um, just taking a really big deep breath in public, like, oh, oh, and and that often I've noticed many times I've done that. People say, "Are you okay? Like, are you all right?" That there are these different signals that people are like, "Oh my God, there must be something wrong that you're taking a deep breath." Or I've had this before as well, just like doing this in public, just really like feeling my sadness and like, mm, or even just like feeling my heart, just like I've had people say, "Are you okay? Like, is there something something wrong that you're connecting to your heart right now, or you're connected to your sadness?" So yeah, there is something going on here with that, where and stemming from childhood that and those those other examples are more like expressive examples, but in this case, it's like, okay, if I'm not signaling anything, if I'm just still, there's something that is not okay about that. And and so yeah, there's something here we're sourcing from infancy. There is a way in which I'm giving my power away, and it stems from infancy. So I'm going to take a moment just to slow down here. Take a deep breath, because I notice in me this fear of like, oh, where do I go next? And I notice immediately the ways in which I'm sort of putting my authority onto you, on anyone that's watching this video. Like, oh, okay, I need to entertain you, or I need to say something that's going to be relevant next. And what if I don't know the next thing to say? So, and I notice that the moment I start doing that is the moment I lose connection to my power. I'm going away. I'm putting the authority on you. I'm putting the power on you. I need to validate you, or like I need to be validated by you in order to receive love, attention, respect, whatever it is I want out of this moment with you. And and what it does is like when I'm putting all my attention and focus on you, I'm not actually focused on my own impulses. I'm not actually tuned in to my own aliveness. And that really brings me to my next point here, and how I've noticed this sort of this pattern playing out for me is that what I notice is that when I'm in a space, might be a just like a group space, it might be some sort of like relational space, like a circle where we're like sharing our feelings, maybe like a men's group, or you know a retreat where there's a particular leader or someone who's holding space, and I'm not the space holder, I'm not the quote unquote leader. I have noticed that what will often happen if I'm projecting them as an authority, what will happen is that I will energetically start to sort of prioritize my connection to them. And what will happen is that energetically, whenever I have desires or impulses that come up, I might be aware of them and they might come up, but what will happen is that they will come up and then they will energetically move to the person who I'm projecting my authority stuff onto. It will move through them, be filtered through them, and then land in the space. So basically, like I'm like, oh, I have this aliveness. Oh, is this okay with them? Oh, it feels like it would be okay with them. Great, I'm gonna land in the space. And this often happens when I'm speaking in a group. I'll be like, I'm speaking, I'm speaking, I'm speaking, and I'll be looking at the person who I'm projecting authority on and checking their facial gestures and asking myself, are they approving of me right now? It's like, are they valid? Is what I'm saying like landing for them? Because if it is, great. I will allow my energy to like flow into the space. If it's not, oh, I'm scared. Oh, I need to like consider changing myself. Oh, something's off. And then I start to shut down, and then I'm like, oh, and then I go into this like whole emotional fear thing, like, oh, like what's going on? I don't really trust my instincts. This doesn't seem like it's okay. And then it gets into a whole, you know, experience where I'm not trusting myself. I feel scared. I don't trust the group, and then there's like a backing up that happens. There's a fawning that happens. That's often how it goes. And I really do feel, at least for me and probably for many others, that this experience is happening far more often than we would like to admit. And it's also happening not just interpersonally as like a person being the authority, but also as culturally, like as the culture being the authority. So, we get this all the time. How often, especially during this like you know, highly charged political environment, this culture that we're living in, how often will you filter your desires and aliveness through this charge, this political charge? How you through that before you actually land a communication or a desire into a space or into a community or into like, a friend or someone that you just meet for the first time. How often are you sort of shifting your power and authority over to that cultural perspective before you actually let it land? How often are you filtering your aliveness, filtering what you really feel about something? Perhaps related to politics, perhaps related to how things are going in America, in the world, in your own life. How often are you filtering that through a cultural perspective? I notice myself doing it all the time. And it really it really is like this. I think it's almost even scarier in a cultural perspective because I'm not always getting that immediate feedback. Like I don't know, are you, like and actually this comes back to the still face experiment. How have you ever shared something online, something edgy, vulnerable online, or even in a group, and the response you get is crickets, whereas just like no response. And then there's like this sense of, oh, I have no idea how this landed. Because no one is saying anything that's probably bad. That's like the first judgment for me that comes up. I feel scared. Yeah, so this is another way like how it goes. Like, oh my gosh, like I this still faced community. How often does that happen? Oh my gosh. And what does that do to us? What does that do? I mean, I know for me, it's like I'm immediately like, I don't want to, and like, fuck that. I'm not gonna share. I'm not gonna share how I really feel if this is the response I get from community. Like, no one's gonna. Is I'm just gonna share something vulnerable and there's no response. And then I'll feel resentment. Like I had this expectation that you would respond, and you're not responding, so I'm not going to share anything now. I'm not going to, and then it goes in this whole thing, where I'm now a victim to you, and I'm like, no. So again, another way I'm giving him the next step of giving away my power to culture is becoming a victim and saying, fuck you for not giving me what I expected to get because I was vulnerable here. Ah. So then I think the next, you know, alive desire in me as I'm on this live stream is to ask the question, how do I stay in my authority? How do I remain in my power regardless of who I'm with, what I'm doing? where I am, what cultural values or norms are present in my environment? How do I stay present with my heart? How do I stay in my pelvis so that I'm like really sourcing the impulses that begin in my body and move through m me energetically through my feelings and out me through my voice, and how do I allow this experience to happen? Because me doing all these survival strategies and like living in this sort of shadowy space where I'm dependent on you in order for me to get my needs met or to feel okay or to even like use my voice, it's just not working. It's not working. And it's not the world I want to live in, and it's not the human being that I know that I am. So how do what's the first step here? Where do I go? And I think the first step for me is just admitting when it's happening. Can I can I have the awareness to acknowledge in myself that I am giving away my authority to this other person, this other place, this other thing? Can I acknowledge that? Even in the micro moments, can I acknowledge that in this moment, just like how I was previously, I noticed that I was giving my authority away to you, the viewer. Can I notice that and just name that? The moment I named that for myself is the moment I was like, okay, great, that's happening. So that's step one. And what happened next? It's like, oh, it was like, okay, that's happening. And I bring my awareness back to myself. Okay, what is my impulse right now? What do I want? And what do I feel? What is my impulse? What do I want? What do I feel? What do I need right now? What's important to me in this moment that has maybe nothing to do with you at all? Like, what's important to me? If this whole experience, if each moment is for me and only me, this is just about me, and I'm just saying, this is my life, it's about me, this is for me, what am I aware of? Then I notice I'm suddenly aware of my body. And I'm just like, okay, I'm more aware of my body, I'm aware of the tension in my shoulders. Notice myself relaxing more and allowing myself to sort of be as I am. Something I will notice when I'm giving my authority away to others is that there is this sort of pressure to act or do something. So you might experience this as well, but what that does for me is it actually takes me away from my experience in my body and my experience with my feelings because there's this like I need to like say something or I need to like so I need to say the thing instead of can I just like relax, come back into my body. There's no pressure. And actually, if I'm really in my authority, and this feels so good to say, I have all the time in the world because I can choose what I want to do with my time. I get to choose what I want to do with my body. And yes, that might have an impact on you. Yes, you might not feel okay with me taking my time, going slow. You might want something from me. And when I'm in my authority, I get to choose whether I'm going to give that to you or not. So embodiment, coming back, slowing down, relaxing is really a huge place, a really huge tip for coming back into my authority. And then from this place, I'm getting curious, like, ooh, what is my like, what is my impulse here? What feels alive here? And I can feel some joy sort of stirring in me when I'm like, oh, what feels alive? Yeah. I also feel angry, like, what do I want? Like, I want, yeah, like I want, fuck, what do I want here? And so I'm allowing my emotional experience, my feelings to start to come alive. And something about feelings is that you might notice this, that when you have your eyes open, when I have my eyes open, I'm more likely to be in a conscious feeling. And a conscious feeling is something that's a feeling that pertains to what is happening now in this moment, such as it's like, oh, I feel fear because the door's open and now I'm going to use my anger to close the door. Like that's just very much like it's happening in the present moment. Or I feel fear because you seem to be disassociating and I don't know what's going on. I need to communicate that I'm unclear of what's happening right now in our relational dynamic. That's something that's happening here and now. When we close our eyes and we connect to our feelings, we're often connected into an emotion. More often than not all the time, but more often than not, there's an emotion here, something that's connected to the past. When I say emotion, I mean a feeling that's actually has a story that's connected to the past. And so when I navigate from that place, and when I'm trying to navigate in the present from something in the past, I'm I'm not in my authority. I'm not actually in my authority because I've now given my power away to my past, and I'm basically energetically, again, let's go back to this, energetically taking my authority, filtering it through my past, and then landing it into the space, landing it into my relationship, landing it into life. And it's just, it's not a place of power. It's not a place of power. If I'm saying you, how dare you, how dare you for being such an asshole. You know, you're just clearly trying to take advantage of me. Like you're like, how dare you? You know, it's like, okay, well, I'm clearly projecting some story onto this person, whether or not they're actually being an asshole. Like I'm projecting some story there, and it's not leading to me being in my power because now I'm sort of created this dynamic where I'm a victim to you. And that further creates this deeper sense of I'm not in my power and I need you to change in order for me to feel okay. I need for you to change in order for me to feel more in my power. Um, yeah, that's different. As opposed to I feel angry. I feel angry. The way that you're showing up with me is not okay, and I have a boundary around like I'm not okay with this. Will you tell me like what you need right now? Because you seem angry, and yeah, I feel angry as a result of the way that you're communicating with me. I'm wondering what do you need? Okay, you don't know what you need. All right. Will you come back to me when you know what you need? I'm going to leave now because I'm not available for this type of connection. It's a very different, very different experience there, right? It's like it's a very different thing going on. I'm not making this person, into anything. I'm just saying I'm curious about what's going on. I do feel angry about it. I'm not available for that. This is my boundary, and I'm gonna leave now, and I'm making a request to you because I want to remain in connection to you. But the way that we're engaging, the way that we are in connection is not working for me. And this is me being in my authority. This means saying like I can choose who I allow into my life. I can choose how I want to engage, and this is not how I want to engage, so I'm going. Yeah, great. So notice in me like a sense of relief and also like almost like a ah, I like exhausted a bit in that. Ah, and I'm curious what's next here. And perhaps that maybe that's it. Maybe that's the end of our call today. So I will check one more time. Anything else here before we close here that feels alive, that would pertain to what is going on in here? Yeah, let's bring it back to the still face experiment. So we just went through this whole exploration here. And I started with this invitation to really look at this experiment with the baby who is becomes distressed the moment that mom no longer signals to her that she's emotionally available. And as a child, this makes sense, right? It makes sense that that would be distressful because as a child, I'm dependent on you to stay alive. I'm very much dependent on you to stay alive. And if I'm not getting the signal that you're attuned to me, then that's a really big deal. That's a legitimate issue. And if I'm strapped into a seat, like imagine just being, tied down somewhere and you're really dependent on this person to to have a good faith, orientation towards you. If I am questioning that at any moment, I'm going to be very scared. I'm very afraid because my my in a way, my agency is like I've lost a lot of agency if I'm tied down. I've lost a lot of my agency. So it is, I have given that to you, whether that was intentional or not. So from a baby's perspective, it really makes a lot of sense to show up in this way. As an adult, if I'm doing that same thing, where like you need to emotionally engage with me in order for me to feel assured in my own being, to feel validated, to feel okay. At that point, it's like I'm basically living from this story from the past that says I'm still that baby sort of tied into the seat and I don't have agency. And so I need to depend on you in order to feel okay. I need to depend on you in order to get my needs met. I need you to like behave in a particular way in order for me to feel, you know, permission to be who I am or ask for my needs or share my feelings or take the next step in my life. So I invite you to check in with yourself this week. How are you giving away your authority to others? What is the moment when you notice yourself doing that smile? Hey, hey, hi. That smile that may be actually not so sincere and actually a survival response. How often are you making someone else the authority? How often are you energetically moving your awareness through someone else, through cultural perspective, through maybe a thing, maybe it's money? How often are you filtering your aliveness, your authority, your power through something else before it lands into the space, into life, into a relationship, into whatever it is that you're engaging with? And what would it look like for you? What do you need in order to step more fully into your power this week? What does that look like for you? How will you do it? Will it just like start with embodiment? Will you just like bring more awareness to your body? I know for me it's like, yeah, when I spent a bunch of my morning just like breathing into my balls and being like, yeah, okay, yeah, when I'm in my pelvis, when I'm in my genitals, I'm much more concrete in my root, in my body, in my being, and that's my place of authority. So is my belly. But it really does often start in my genitals and it often does start in my belly as well. So will you do it through embodiment? Will you do it through just self-awareness, just noticing, okay, I just did it. I just did that. Will you name it out loud? Hey, I notice I'm giving away my authority to you. I'm literally trying to get validated through you. This is another thing I've been doing. It's like naming it to people, being like, hey, we've been in this connection. I notice I'm getting hooked on you. I've been trying to desperately get validated by you. Like I've been doing that with you. When you name it, it kills it breaks something breaks apart, something falls apart. It's hard to continue a dynamic like that when you're just naming it. The moment you name it is the moment it's like why would I ever do that if I was aware of it? And and why would this other person ever want me to do that if they're also aware of it? So will you name it? And last, I want to give one more here. Um, will you in your next sort of interaction, maybe in a group setting or with your partner or with your boss, will you take a stand for yourself? Will you say the thing that you normally wouldn't say from this place of self-authority? Will you, the moment you notice that maybe you're putting your authority on them, bring yourself back, check into what is my impulse right now? What is the thing I want to say? And maybe if I don't even have all the words, will you just say it? Will you just say how you feel? Will you just like name the thing that needs to be named? Will you take a stand for what matters to you, what's important to you? Will you let your voice be heard? Will you let yourself be seen? That is the step. And I think I'm going to end by saying so often in my life, what I have desperately craved the most is to be felt, to be seen, to be heard. And what I have realized is that these things have nothing to do with you. These desires of mine are not dependent on you whatsoever, actually. Because if I actually want to be seen, if I actually want to be heard, if I actually want to be felt, it begins with me. Begins with me deciding to see me, see what's going on, taking a look, becoming more self-aware. It begins with me feeling my feelings and letting them be like speaking from my feelings. I feel afraid, I feel angry, I feel joy, I feel sadness. And it begins with me allowing my voice to come through in relationships, in group settings, in my world, allowing myself to speak even when it is scary. And that is how I'm heard. So with that, I close here and I thank you for joining me on this live stream. Feel joy to explore this project or this theme today. And yeah, I feel more in my authority by just like allowing myself to be seen in this. That hey, it's okay. It's okay to not be fully here in my power at all times. I really don't know many people who are fully in their power, in their authority at all times. But I want to create a culture. I choose to create a culture where that is okay. We are acknowledging that and we are showing ourselves in that. We're not trying to hide or pretend like, oh yeah, I'm just like this powerful person, always in my power. I'm just gonna like show up and goof. You're always gonna see me this way, and I'm gonna hold this thing. You're always gonna see me, and you're gonna project all your stuff onto me, and I'm gonna accept it. No, I don't want that kind of world. I want a world where it's just like I'm being honest. This is what's going on for me. This is how I want to show up different next time. I'm in support of myself. I'm in support of you, and we're doing this together. Let's claim our authority here and stop projecting it onto the world. All right. With that, I'm complete.